in the wild heart of Africa, where life and death walk side by side. One story reminds us that love knows no boundaries. The Okavango Delta was dying. The rivers that once danced through Botswana's golden plains had shrunk to narrow veins of mud. The air shimmered with heat, and the cries of thirsty animals echoed across a land that had forgotten the sound of rain. Among the survivors moved Nara, an 8-year-old lioness, once a queen, now a ghost of her former self. She had led a mighty pride across this wilderness, raising cubs beneath the shade of fever trees, hunting beneath the silver moon. But the drought had stolen everything. Pride had fallen to hunger, and conflict-rival lions had claimed her territory, scattering the family she had spent years protecting. Now she walked alone, ribs showing beneath her faded coat. Her golden eyes, carrying the weight of every lost days, blended into each other. The sun rose, burned, and fell. Nara wandered, her paws tracing old paths through cracked earth and brittle grass. She no longer roared. There was no one left to answer but fate. In the heart of the Okavango often hides its miracles inside its tragedies. One merciless afternoon, as the air shimmered and even the wind seemed too tired to move, Nara heard a sound, faint, trembling, almost human. A cry. She froze, her ears tilted. The call came again, weak, desperate. Not the chirp of a bird, not the bleat of an antelope. It was the cry of a baby, but not a lion drawn by instinct. She followed the sound through a grove of ancient baobab trees, their hollow trunks standing like keepers of forgotten stories. And there, in the meager shade of one, she saw it, a small, gray figure curled against the roots, a baby elephant, barely a few weeks old. His skin hung loose on his bones, his trunk twitching with exhaustion. No herd in sight, no mother's shadow, only emptiness. Nara's breath caught. Every law of nature screamed what she should do next. Lions and elephants were eternal enemies. Adult elephants could kill a lion with a single strike, and yet here, before her, was a helpless calf, prey by all accounts. But what stirred inside Nara was not hunger. It was something older, deeper, the ache of a mother who had lost everything. The little elephant lifted his trunk, touching the air between them. It trembled, reaching toward her face as if asking a question, and in that small gesture, something broke open inside her, something fierce and tender. All at once, slowly, Nara stepped closer. Her massive paws, silent as dusk, circled him. She lowered her head until her nose brushed his tiny forehead. He smelled of dust and milk and despair. The baby made a small, uncertain sound. Nara answered with a soft rumble, the sound a lioness makes when comforting her cubs. She began to groom him, her rough tongue sweeping gently over his dry skin, clearing dust and flies away. The calf stilled, then leaned into her warmth. For the first time in days, his eyes closed under that ancient baobab. Predator and prey became something else, mother and child. The lioness who had lost her family had found a new reason to live, and the orphan who had lost his herd had found a heartbeat to follow. Nara named him Temba, meaning hope in the language of the land. When the sun began to fall, painting the sky in copper and fire, Nara knew Temba wouldn't survive the night without water. She remembered a shallow pool nearly 3 kilometers away, one of the last that hadn't yet dried, but Temba was too weak to walk. So Nara did what no lioness had ever done before. She nudged him, urged him, stood beside him, each step a battle against exhaustion. When he stumbled, she pressed her body against his side, letting him lean on her strength hour by hour. They crawled across the dying plains, a journey that should have taken 1 hour stretched into 4 finally. Just as the horizon began to glow with the last light of day, they reached the water. Temba staggered forward, plunged his trunk into the pool, and drank like a creature reborn. Nara watched, proud, protective, and utterly transformed that night. She lay beside him under the stars, her body curved protectively around his small frame. For the first time since her pride was lost, she slept in peace above them. The constellations burned bright, silent witnesses to a love that had never been seen before in the wild from a nearby research post. Dr. Lina Moyo, a wildlife conservationist, stared at her screen in disbelief. Through her field camera, she watched the impossible unfold. A lioness guarding a baby elephant like her own cubber. Voice trembled as she spoke into her recorder. This could change everything we know about animal instinct. The lioness isn't hunting, she's protecting. As the night deepened and the delta lay silent, the camera captured a sight that would one day captivate the world. The gentle silhouette of a lioness licking the face of a sleeping elephant calf. It was the beginning of a story that would rewrite the meaning of motherhood and love. In the wild heart of Africa, there are moments in the wild that silence even the wind. Moments when the laws of survival bend to something far greater. Weeks had passed since that fateful meeting beneath the baobab tree. The land still thirsted, but for Nara and Temba, life had begun again. The lioness who once hunted across these plains now hunted for survival, not hunger. Her prey was no longer food. It was time, water, and safety. Every sunrise brought new dangers. Hyenas circled the watering holes. Crocodiles lurked in the shrinking rivers, and yet, every evening, Nara and Temba still lay side by side. Two souls defying the wild itself. Temba had grown stronger. His once fragile legs now carried him with a clumsy confidence. He followed Nara everywhere, through reeds, across sand, into the whispering shadows of the fever trees. When she crouched to drink, he mimicked her, dipping his trunk into the water before splashing it over her mane, as if trying to cool her under the sun's cruel gaze. At first, Nara didn't understand. Then she simply accepted it, the way mothers accept their children's quirks. Delta's predators began to notice two hyenas watched from a distance. Confused by the impossible pair, wild dogs gave chase once, but when Nara turned to defend Temba, roaring with the fury of every mother who's ever stood between danger and her child, the pack scattered. They never tried again at the edge of this living miracle. Dr. Lina Moyo continued to watch through her long lens camera. She had documented lions for over 20 years, but nothing like this. Every behavior here challenges our understanding. She whispered into her recorder. Nara's maternal instincts have transferred across species. She's teaching Temba how to survive as if he were her cub through hidden cameras. Lina recorded moments that would one day circle the world. Nara teaching Temba to rest in the shade, showing him where to find edible roots, guarding him while he bathed in mud like the elephants he had never known. In one clip, the little elephant stumbled trying to roll in the cooling earth. Nara, amused, lowered herself and rolled too. A lioness teaching an elephant to mud bathe. It was clumsy. It was ridiculous. It was love, but love in the wild always comes with a testone dawn. The scent of danger carried on the wind, the unmistakable musk of lions. A pride had moved into their territory. 3 males, 5 females, and hungry cubs. For the first time since her exile, Nara felt the pull of her old life, the primal instinct to rejoin her kind, to be part of a pride again. Her body yearned for the rhythm of the hunt, for the voices of sisters she no longer had. But beside her stood Temba, still young, still trusting, unaware of the threat that approached as the rival pride came into view. The lead male lifted his head and saw them. His golden mane caught the sun. His roar shattered the morning silence in the language of lions. That roar meant, "This is mine." Nara stood her ground. Her tail flicked once. The message was clear. Not today. The pride advanced slowly, confusion flickering in their eyes. What kind of lioness stands guard over an elephant calf? The males circled, searching for weakness. Temba, Sensing the tension, moved closer to Nara, his trunk wrapping around her neck, a gesture of fear. And loved Lina, watching from her jeep a few hundred meters away, could barely breathe. "Don't fight," she whispered. "Please, don't fight." But nature had other plans. Nara's roar rolled across the plains, deep and furious. Not a challenge, but a promise. She would die before letting harm touch her. Chilled Temba responded with a sound no one expected. A deep, rumbling elephant call that echoed through the valley. It wasn't fear. It was warning. The rival lions hesitated. For a moment, the world stood still. The sound of Temba's call and Nara's roar merged into one strange, powerful chorus. A lion and an elephant, defending each other. The males backed away first. Then, one by one, the lionesses followed. The pride turned, disappearing into the shimmering heat. When silence returned, Nara's chest heaved. She turned to Temba, touching his cheek with her nose. He rumbled softly, their private way of saying we're safe. Lina lowered her camera, tears in her eyes. "In 20 years of fieldwork," she whispered, "I've never seen anything like this. It's not instinct anymore, it's devotion." As weeks turned to months, their bond deepened. Nara no longer hunted the way lions do. She learned to move slower, to travel during cooler hours for Temba's sake. She began tracking the delta's hidden waterholes and feeding grounds, not for her, but for him in turn. Temba learned her language, not just the sounds, but the looks, the silences. When Nara flicked her tail twice, he froze. When she crouched low, he followed her lead. They became a rhythm, two species moving as one heartbeat. Then came the season of fire. The grasslands, dry as paper, caught flame beneath a lightning storm. Smoke rose like a black river, and panic spread through the delta. Nara and Temba ran, the elephant calf struggling to keep up, Nara circling him, guiding him through the choking haze. The sky turned crimson. Birds screamed overhead. The air was thick with ash. Temba stumbled. Nara pushed at his side, urging him forward, but the fire moved faster. Heat licked at their heels at the edge of the inferno. Nara spotted salvation, a narrow channel of mud leading to a dried-up stream. She roared once, the command to move, and Temba obeyed. They collapsed into the safety of the stream just as the fire roared past them. When the flames finally died, the land around them was silent and scorched. Everything was gone. The trees, the shade, even the scent of life. But they had survived together that night. As the stars returned one by one, Nara rested her head against Temba's shoulder. She could feel the slow, steady rhythm of his heartbeat, a sound that told her everything she needed to know. They had become more than mother and son. They had become each other's reason to exist in every mother's heart, human or wild. There comes a day when love must learn to let go. Years passed in the Okavango Delta, and the drought that once turned the land to dust became a distant memory. The rains returned, filling the channels with life. The reeds grew tall again, and the air shimmered with dragonflies and the laughter of distant elephants. But time changes everything. Even miraculous Temba was no longer the fragile calf who once hid beneath the baobab's roots. He had grown into a magnificent young bull, his tusks ivory white in the sun, his back towering over the lioness who had raised him. And Nara, once the fierce queen of the delta, had begun to slow. Her golden coat, once bright as fire, now shimmered with streaks of silver. The years of protecting and guiding a creature so unlike her had left their mark. But her eyes still carried the same soft light, the glow of a heart that had loved deeply. And truly they still lived together near the same pool where Nara had first saved Temba's life. She hunted less now, but she didn't need to. The land was generous again, and Temba had learned to gather what they both required: water, fruit. Safety, they had become legends in the wilderness. Every creature in the region knew of them. The lioness, who walked beside an elephant. The elephant who guarded a lioness. Predators gave them space. Herds watched them pass without fear. Even the birds seemed to fall silent when they appeared together at the water's edge and from afar. Dr. Lina Moyao continued to record their story, her voice thick with awe. 7 years, she whispered into her microphone. 7 years of a love that defied instinct, science and everything we thought we knew. But nature, wise and merciless, was preparing its final lesson. It began subtly. Temba grew restless each evening, when the distant calls of wild elephants rolled across the plains. His great ears lifted, his trunk swayed toward the horizon. He would stand motionless for hours, listening to voices only he could understand. Nara watched him, her chest tight with something she couldn't name. She had always known this day would come, the day Temba would feel the pull of his own kind. She had raised him to survive, to belong, even if it meant belonging somewhere she could not follow. Then, one morning, the sound came, a low rumble that shook the ground. A herd of elephants, more than 20, appeared from the mist, their massive shapes glowing gold in the rising sun. They were led by an ancient matriarch named Naledi, her tusks long and wise, her eyes calm with the knowing of many seasons. Among them was a young female named Kaya, curious and graceful. Her gaze found Temba almost immediately, and in that single glance, a connection sparked. For 3 days, the herd lingered near the waterhole. Temba hovered at the edges, torn between the world he knew and the one calling to him. Kaya would approach, step by step, trunk outstretched, but never too close. Nara's scent still marked the air, warning them all that this place, this bond, was sacred. On the 4th morning, as the sky blushed with dawn, Nara made her choice. She rose quietly from where she lay beside Temba. Her legs trembled slightly. Age had softened her strength, but not her courage. She walked to a nearby rise overlooking the waterhole and stopped, looking down at the herd, at her son, at the life she had built from her vantage point. She watched Temba turn toward her for a moment. He hesitated, then, with slow, deliberate steps, he began to walk toward the herd. Dr. Lina watched through her camera, her hands shaking. "She's letting him go," she whispered. "She's letting him go." Temba approached the herd with the grace of a creature who had learned compassion from a predator. Naledi, the matriarch, studied him with deep understanding. She rumbled softly, an invitation. Kaya reached out, touching Temba's trunk with her own, and just like that, he was accepted. But before he fully joined them, Temba turned across the grass. He saw Nara, still watching. Still proud, he walked back to her, slow and steady, until they stood face to face. The great elephant knelt on his front legs, bringing his head down to her level. His trunk reached out, wrapping around her neck in an embrace that seemed to stop time itself. Nara leaned forward, pressing her forehead against his. She groomed his cheek one last time, the same way she had when he was small and trembling under the baobab tree. It was not a goodbye of sorrow. It was a blessing, a promise that what they had built together would never truly end. Then, with one last rumbling breath, Temba turned and walked back to the herd as the elephants began their long journey into the delta. Nara watched them disappear into the shimmering horizon. She did not follow. She simply sat, her tail curled around her paws, her eyes fixed on the place where her son had vanished into his new life. Days grew quieter after that. Nara roamed her familiar territory, her pace slower, her heart at peace too. Years passed before she saw him again. The reunion came one summer morning when the air was heavy with the scent of rain. From the distant trees emerged a sight that brought tears to the eyes of everyone watching. Through the researchers, Camaras Temba had returned. He was enormous now, nearly 3 tons of muscle and grace. His tusks gleaming beside him walked Kaya, and between them, a tiny calf. When the family reached the baobab tree, the same one where the story had begun, Temba lowered his head once more. Nara, older and slower, but still radiant, stepped forward. She touched her nose to the calf, her grandchild, and began to groom it tenderly. Kaya stood close, still but respectful, and for one breathtaking hour, the impossible family gathered beneath the same tree that had once sheltered a dying baby and a grieving lioness. Cameras caught every moment. Temba standing guard, his shadow stretching over the tree roots, Kaya watching quietly, Nara, her head resting against the calf's tiny shoulder. It was more than a reunion. It was proof that love can shape even the wild DR. Lena's final journal entry captured the truth of it best. For years, I've studied instinct, behavior, and evolution. But what I witnessed between Nara and Temba wasn't instinct. It was something greater, the universal language of love. A lioness saved an elephant. And in doing so, she reminded all of us that compassion is not a human invention. It belongs to life itself. As the sun set that evening, the Okavango Delta glowed with gold and fire. Nara rested beneath the baobab's shade, her eyes half closed, her heart full. Somewhere in the distance, an elephant's call rolled across the plains, low, soft, familiar. She lifted her head once, as if listening. Then she lay back down, her breath calm, her story complete. And as the stars rose over the delta, a gentle wind rustled the trees, carrying with it the whisper of a love that had changed the world.